Okay. All right. I think we're live. Sorry about that. Was a little late. I don't like to be late doing things, but as usual, had some technical issues over here. Last time was pretty much a test stream, very much a test. This time I have a little bit better of an idea of what I'm doing with the technical aspects on the back end, so we don't need to worry about that this time. So I'm just going to go through kind of a roll call, so to speak, even though maybe there's one or two people here. I don't know. Maybe people will trickle in, but I need to check to make sure everything is working. Sound is good. I'm going to, yep, sound, we're good to go there. Let me check all systems go on. I can just show you this process because it's pretty boring. Like you don't really see what I'm, you can't really see what I'm doing. You just have to take my word for it. But I swear I'm actually doing something over here. Let me make sure I'm sharing sound. That's pretty important. And let's go with just the whole screen. Why not? All right. YouTube, how are we doing? Let me reload this. Okay, good. It says I'm live, which I am. True. Let's go to Twitch. Yep, there I am. Good. What about LinkedIn? You know how I feel about LinkedIn going live. It's always a struggle doing this. Let me go to my profile. Yep, I'm in. I understand it's Sunday night. I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, good. It says I'm live. It's probably just notification saying, hey, did you know that you're live? Because maybe you didn't know that you're live. Well, now you know that you're live. Here's my Twitter. Try and reload it. Oh, there I am. Okay. And they put the live here. Oh, they put it after the pinned tweet. Got it. Make sure the sound. Okay, it's good. Facebook. And there I am. Okay, cool. All right. So now that I'm confident everything is working, sound is good, all systems go. Yeah, let me kick this off. So my name is Keith Hayden. I'm an author, podcaster. I do a lot of things. I'm a creator. And yeah, this is my live stream. If you are new to this, this is my live stream for what I'm calling a book experience. And what a book experience is it's kind of an expansion of my novel, Cereus and Limnic, that takes you deeper into the stories, characters, scenarios of the world that I've created in the story. But it's not just kind of like a fan fiction thing or that type of thing. It's more of like an exploration, really, of the lessons. That's what I wanted. I wanted something that was going to draw out these lessons to where people who don't have time to read it, who can't take the time to read a nearly 500 page, 150,000 plus word novel, which I imagine is a lot of you out there. I wanted to be able to break it down to kind of make it accessible for our just kind of social media world, the way most people consume information nowadays, which is very bite size. It's very pick up, put down. It's, you know, a couple of seconds, couple of minutes here and there. It's evolved. It's changed, even though there, of course, there are plenty of people who still love and read books and all that stuff. I'm one of them. This was my attempt to kind of try something new creatively. And I don't know, just see if I could get more people to be aware of my book and be aware of the awesome lessons that I included in there. And then just the awesome stuff. There's just some really cool stuff in there that I want more people to experience. So if you're new to this type of thing, welcome. If you are a returning person or a regular listener of my audio drama podcast, the Cereus and Limnic audio drama podcast, then I welcome you and I thank you for putting up with this super long hiatus that the show has been on for the last 10 months, 9 months. Not cool, I know. But hopefully that you're still there and hopefully you're checking out the brand new episode that I just put out, the brand new chapter that I just put out. I'll show it to you. Fresh chapter 23, Rebirth. Super excited about this chapter. And I understand some of you are probably, maybe you're following along with me with these live streams and you're new to the book. So obviously you're probably not going to want to jump to chapter 23, but this was where I left off. I left off at chapter 22 and chapter 23 is here after a 9-month break. Here it is. And I'm super proud of this. Got some help from a good friend, Steven. Thank you so much when it comes to sound design, because I'm not going to lie, it was kind of a mess in chapter 22, the last one that I did. That's one of the reasons why I paused the podcast, because I just wasn't happy with the way it turned out. And I knew I needed to come up a little bit in that department as far as sound design and then just the overall package and product that I was putting out. So I am happy to report that it is a lot better this time. It's a lot more just uniform and just quality has come up. I'm back to composing again. I made another song for this, what I call a mini track, which is just a track within the audio file. And I just kind of just composed it a little bit in there for a really, really, I think, deeply impactful moment in that chapter. And I'm proud of that. So yeah, give this a listen if you are just already have been waiting for it to come back and you're one of the people out there who's enjoyed it, then go ahead and check it out. Chapter 23 is there. And last thing I'll plug before I get started is Cereus and Limnic FutureFlight. This is the container for the book experience. So I just wanted to show a little bit of the website that I created. This is the FutureFlight website, and should you become a passenger, you'll get access to this. And it's basically everything that I've been talking about as far as like the announcements and book summary and more in this one place. So this kind of hub place where you can, that says current chapter. Actually, current chapter is chapter 2. I got to update that. But you can access the episodes from here. You can access summaries, which is something that I'm trying to do because, like I said, I understand the time is not there to read the book and consume it in the traditional way. So that's why I'm doing chapter summaries for you. For passengers, for people that come on and that want to be a part of the book experience as it evolves. And then going live, of course, is the link to my YouTube, and then the Zoom is here, which I'm actually doing this through Zoom. You can probably see the Zoom watermark on my screen, so you probably know that it's through Zoom. But yeah, so should you become a passenger, my passengers are the people that are in on this book experience have the opportunity to join me on these Zooms live. Whereas if you're just watching this through a live stream, or maybe you're watching it through a replay right now, then you just watch through the replay, and that's cool too. But it would be nice if more people could actually like join me live, because this is more fun that way. I'm gonna be talking to myself the whole time. I do a lot of that with podcasting anyway. So how to join the show? This is something that's kind of unique to Cereus and Limnic. There's a lot of people throwing the word community around lately. And this is my adaptation of that when it comes to the audio drama and the podcast. So I kind of have this vision of having like a community podcast. And I know that kind of sounds weird. The typical cadence for one of these podcasts, especially when it comes to like a fiction podcast, is you have this kind of ensemble cast, and there are all these seasoned voice actors and producers, and they come together and they create a show. And that's how a lot of fiction podcasts work. I would like to experiment with something different, to where it's just people like me, like, believe it or not, well, maybe you probably believe it, I'm not an experienced voice actor. I'm totally an amateur. I'm someone who has loved doing voices and just kind of being silly. As my wife and my brothers, like, we grew up playing RPGs, and we would just shout out to you, Ajani, if you're watching this. But yeah, we used to just do voices for all the characters, and we just make it up, and we had a lot of fun. I remember just hours just making up silly voices and just kind of having fun playing these games. So that has kind of extended to this, and that's why I wanted to do the audio drama myself, or the audio book originally, because I wanted to bring myself into it. And I'll get into um, kind of other people's roles in a minute as I start the chapter. But yeah, I want to bring myself into it. So that's why I like this idea. I haven't kicked it off yet because I'll be honest, I haven't had anybody come in yet, but like, or submit voice samples. But I have a way that you could submit voice samples, and if the voice sample is good and you like that sort of thing, maybe we could get your voice on the podcast. For I don't know, one of the secondary characters, or just reading a summary or something like that. So very experimental at this point, but I think it has a lot of promise once it like takes off. So if that's you're watching right now, you're like, man, that's a good idea. I'll be doing voices too. I talk to myself all the time. Then come on, just, consider becoming a passenger, and then who knows, maybe your voice could be on the show. And then, yeah, I have links to the actual book, and then I did a donation thing to where you can support this this entire endeavor, obviously, because I'm an independent creator. There ain't no budget for this. there's no government card or anything like that. So this is all out of my pocket. It's all a labor of love. I love doing it. I love interacting with you. I love just putting my creativity out there and having it reach the world. So that's there. And then, of course, feedback. And yeah. So if this looks at all cool to you, like, or interesting, and anything I've said in the last 5 minutes kind of resonates, then consider becoming a passenger. Okay, I'm done with that. Let me stop and take a pause and see if anybody's here, like what's going on. Oh, we got one person on Twitch. Very nice. Welcome to one person on Twitch. That's always the funny thing when you're doing these live streams, like, unless they're on Zoom or somebody's told me, because I have an email list which I shout out to, and then of course I tweeted, I posted in various places saying that, hey, I'm going to be going live at this time, and I totally get it. It's Sunday night. Most people aren't on their computers. Phones are probably off. People are trying to get that last little rest in or finish a movie or something before the week starts. But hey, I'm in Japan. It's Monday morning over here, and I'm ready to go. So I part of it was just kind of experimental, right? Just to see, like, hey, can I do this? Like, because it's no better to me during the week, right? Where you have school, you have work, and you have to get to bed, you have to be home. At least it's better than Saturday night, right? Where people might be out, whatever. Just I don't know what you do on Saturday night. I don't do that either anymore. But you know what I'm saying? Like, at least people are home, I guess. Okay, let me check. All right, I don't see anybody else on. At least it's not telling me that anybody else is on any of the others. So did my rounds, just making sure that everything is still up. Okay, I got one on YouTube. Welcome, one person on YouTube. LinkedIn, we got one person. Okay. All right, I think I'm going to get started because I don't want this to go on too long, and I want to get into it. Let me share my screen. We are going to chapter 2 of the audio drama. Oh, I'm super paranoid about, obviously, I'm playing audio, so I need to be sharing sound. This was always a nightmare when I was teaching online, because it's like, you would be teaching for like 15 minutes, and then none of the students are going to tell you your sound's off, that they can't hear anything. They're just like, okay, whatever. I'm just going to go back to playing my game. So I'm like super paranoid. I have to like check 3 times to make sure, okay, sound is on. The main reason why we are here has been enabled. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about chapter 2. I reread the chapter last night, and overall, it's a good chapter. I mean, I think any creator or any artist is gonna be fairly critical of their own work. I am no exception to that, and I couldn't help but see places in the writing where from where I'm at now. Obviously, I started writing Cereus and Limnic, as I said before. I started writing it, I think, in May of 2019, so it was about 3 years ago, and my writing has improved by leaps and bounds since then. I've just written so much more, and I can see that. I can see a little bit of the early, just kind of amateur rookie stuff that I definitely have trained myself to watch out for more at this time. But I'll say overall, it's not a bad chapter at all. It's a good chapter. It sets things up well, and let's listen to it, shall we? Nice.
Chapter 2, Father and Daughter.
Okay, so that song, I like the song, and it is actually, I'm very proud of it for several reasons. It is actually the very first song I ever created. It just is. I mean, and it's interesting that there's kind of an energy that you bring to an activity when you're brand new in it and you have no idea really what you're doing. I will say I was taking a course. I believe his name, Andrew Huang. He's a popular music YouTuber, and he had a course on monthly, and that was my initial exposure to music production was through his course. And through this, that was ironically my first cohort based course, because we went through as a cohort, we made just music, and every week was kind of a project. And I think it was a month-long course. Oh yeah, it's called monthly. Well, duh. It was a month-long course, and every week you did lessons. You had video lessons, but then you could also interact. You had a chance of interacting with him to where he would actually give you feedback, and he did. He jumped in every now and then and gave feedback to people's just progress in the course. And then, of course, other students could comment on your work. So this song was pretty much me following the formula, but I did have, a fundamental grasp of music theory. So I knew how to put together some chords and a basic melody. And like I was talking about, when you bring that beginner energy to something, you're just like, look, I don't really know what the hell I'm doing, but this feels right. So you have to lean more on intuition because you don't have the technical knowledge. So the result was a song that the melody actually is one of my strongest melodies that I've ever created, because that was something that I really struggled with in the beginning when it came to composition, was creating, how do you create a melody? Like I've listened to so much music. I grew up, my dad was a radio DJ. So I just grew up listening to music. I love music. But when it comes to like making your own melody, I struggled. So this melody of this song, it didn't really get into the melody, and I wish I hadn't let the song play out so long. For 30 seconds, that's kind of a long time, especially for a podcast, but now I wouldn't do that. But I'm kind of glad I did, because it is it's a shift from the last chapter to where we were talking about a completely different character, completely different place, and it obviously the vibe's different. And yeah, it starts the story out in a neat way. So anyway, super proud of that song. It's called The Name of the City 2062. I'm not going to spoil the name of the city because that comes in later, but yeah, it's just a futuristic version of this town. Let's keep going.
A distant buzzing drifted through the air, floating into her consciousness. Initially, She thought it was a component of the bizarre dream that her sleeping mind had conjured to entertain her. So she listened. Seconds faded into minutes as she strained the limits of her hearing. Frustration gave way to fatigue as she stood silent, unable to find the origin of the tone. The noise was accompanied by recurring visual elements of the dream: fields of grass tinted with the color of ocean water, her father, herself, and an ancient computer monitor with a flashing blue screen awaiting an input command. With hopeful trepidation, she approached the glowing terminal, extending a trembling hand to a yellowed, brownish keyboard. Without hesitation, her young fingers began gliding across, sticking keys, attempting to manipulate the machine. Yet each keystroke failed to bring the machine to life. It remained dormant, unyielding, with only a blinking cursor winking mockingly at her entries, void of caring or empathy. It's broken. The thought flashed in her mind, repeating itself with the rhythm of the blinking command line cursor. Then the beeping sound began, first faintly, barely above an audible frequency. But eventually, the volume increased to an almost deafening tone after a few seconds, only to fade away until it became a quiet whisper again. Where is it? Why can't I find it? Her inability to find the source of sound made her feel lost in the blue void. A prisoner of the expanse, subjected to an unexplained wavering tone. Her vexation rising along with the awareness of her thumping heart drew her back into her conscious mind. She lay there with her eyes closed for a few moments more, grasping in vain at wispy dream fragments. It was an exercise in futility, but she forced herself into a momentary calm, seeking to extend her limited physical senses. After several seconds, she still heard the beeping. It was close, closer than she had ever been. What? Wait, it worked?
Okay, so I wanted to let that entire dream sequence play out. Talk a little bit about me and that type of writing, because obviously it's very descriptive. There's not a lot of dialogue. And I think naturally, as writers, if any writers are watching this, we kind of gravitate to, we have our strengths and weaknesses when it comes to writing. And that's kind of what I like about writing a novel, is that you can explore these different types of writing throughout the entire book, and I love that. You can go from heavy description like this to, snappy dialogue, to engaging fight scenes, to, this, flowery world description. The choice is yours. You can do whatever you want. And I love that. So this particular aspect of writing is not one that I really enjoy. And I remember I really struggled with this. This was chapter 2. And I remember I was like, okay, she's going to start out with a dream. And I understand that's a little cliche to start out with, obviously waking up from a dream, but it's a great place to start a story. That's why a lot of stories do it. So yeah, I just remember struggling with this and just being like, how do you make it to where it's vivid and it's descriptive? But I think the end result, like reading it again last night after, not having looked at it for a long time, I feel like it worked. I feel like it worked. You be the judge. Maybe you think different. Maybe you think it was trash, whatever. But I feel like it did achieve it. I don't think I would change much more, except for maybe like the nature of the dream is, it's just kind of like, okay, so what? There's this computer. But anyway, I might make it a little bit more engaging. but I think I managed to shore up one of my weaknesses, or at least improve upon it. You be the judge, though. Let's go.
Her eyes shot open. In a flurry of motion, she threw her thin sheet off her and rushed to the window of her room, flinging open the curtains, squinting through her sleep-clouded vision to see past the wide lawn and the imposing black gate at the end of a long driveway. The source of the sound had been a garbage bot performing his collection duties. The machine's shape in the form of an old-timey silver trash can was an ironic reality, not lost on her. It made her picture the old world of her father, a mixture of mismatched fashion styles, green lawns, and for some reason, mustached men converged in a sepia tone in her mind's eye.
I can't remember why I put that in there, but I like the detail.
A caricature of a past she never knew or fully understood. The bot used alloyed arms to lift the black bag of refuse into a gaping dark hole in its center, letting the door glide shut after the waste was deposited deep within its interior. From her vantage point, she could not see evidence of the tiny explosion inside of the machine, turning the garbage into ashes and energy. But she was always curious about it, wanting to understand how they packed such a powerful explosion into such a tiny space. Ignition method? Fuel source? How? The unanswered questions left her with an uncomfortable, in the dark feeling. She wasn't afraid of the dark, but she preferred the bright illumination of knowledge to guide her steps.
I love that quote. I actually just tweeted that out yesterday. She wasn't afraid of the dark, but she preferred the bright illumination of knowledge to guide her steps. I mean, that it's just a good quote from the book, and it really speaks to this character that we're starting to meet, right? And I think that I was thinking of the narrative style just now, what I was talking about as far as, struggling with doing the descriptions and stuff. But I also have that's kind of my writing style, where especially when I write fiction, I like to kind of let the character narrate, so to speak. And of course, it's me writing it, of course, as the author, but you know what I mean. Basically, some people have a completely third person omniscient narrator, to where the narrator kind of sees all and is kind of impartial to the narrator's just the narrator, and then the characters are the characters. But the way I write, the narrator is kind of colored by the character. So the narrator becomes basically a spokesperson for the primary character, if that makes sense. So that's just kind of the way I naturally write. I remember I read a lot of books that are written in this way, and I find those more engaging, just because instead of just like the straight up vanilla narrator, who just kind of talks about the events, or yeah, this is what somebody said, or this is what they look like, whatever. You have this kind of it brings you closer to the character of the primary character of that section of the book. I like that writing style, and that's where I gravitate towards. So let's continue.
The garbage bot continued its movement down the street, taking her tension with it. She let her shoulders relax and took a deep breath to fill her lungs. False alarm. How silly of me to think that I would be able to hold on to it.
Oh, by the way, a note about the garbage bots. I remember back then I was watching a lot of Doctor Who, and I had never, before my wife and I got together, I'd never heard of it really. And I know it's super, super popular. I get it. I totally missed out on it. But yeah, she really liked the show. And so we had been watching it pretty regularly back then. And yeah, I was definitely like in my subconscious thinking of like the Daleks. And if you're a Doctor Who fan, I feel like there's only like one or two types of Doctor Who fans. The super, my other car is a TARDIS fan, and like the milder type of it. I feel like any Doctor Who fan I know is like fanatics. But anyway, um, yeah, I was definitely thinking of the Daleks, you know, how they look kind of like this tin can and they're supposed to be kind of cheesy and all that type of stuff. But anyway, that was the inspiration loosely for the garbage pot. It was also just a regular old trash can that's basically on wheels.
She thought, pondering the dream again. Her disappointment was quickly displaced by a strong desire to get her day going. Moving away from the window and around her bed, she picked up her device from its appointed position by her bedside. Her device was gold, adorned with a sticker of a rocket spitting a flame from its exhaust, another of a black infinity sign, and a third of a single white gear on the back. The decals were scratched and faded from countless transfers in and out of her pockets. A vocal command from her lips brought the limitless device to life. Calendar. Setting the device in an old yet functional robotic circular swivel, she angled it toward a barren wall behind her nightstand, waiting to view her calendar. But nothing appeared. Oh, damn it. I forgot to set it to project mode. She was still getting used to the new model with improved projection features. Project mode. Her voice produced a tiny echo in the room, a clear sign of sleep fog lifting from her mind's surface. The calendar flashed onto the wall in a complicated matrix of social and academic suspense dates. A hidden code only she and possibly her best friend and rival, Harpreet, could decipher. They had competed in all things academic ever since their fateful meeting during the Basics of Language Committee some 12 years prior. Both having been tutored at home by the finest artificial intelligence teaching programs optimized to their unique learning preferences, they became fast friends, leaving the other 5-year-olds behind. With perfect grades, both agreed to race to see who could test out of the committee the fastest. Her competitive nature manifested early on, and she won the contest by 1 day. That had been the beginning of a rivalry that continued to this day, with each girl taking the lead in every other contest, year after year. Both enjoyed the shared rivalry and friendship. It drove them to greater heights and kept life interesting. She found her mind wandering, but managed to focus it back to the projected calendar. Her vision focused on the date, June 14th, 2062. 2 events, one with a green rhombus, the other with a red pentagon in front of it, populated the line.
Okay, just a brief note on the date, June 4th. I think it's 14th, 16th. Oh man, I already missed it. um 2062, right? I remember it took me a little bit to, because I'll be honest, like when it came to the setting of this book, it didn't, it's not really a strong like setting book, like meaning like it doesn't really matter where it takes place. It's not a big part of it. It's well, it's not a huge part, you know. It's not like Middle Earth or something, right? It's like this place where, or these stories that are set in New York City, where New York City becomes kind of a character in itself. It's not really that type of story. But as far as getting, when I was doing sci-fi, writing this as sci-fi, I'm like, what would be the best year to set it in. And this is where, you kind of just make stuff up where you're just like, okay, 2062. I feel like by then, these are the types of capabilities or these are the types of societies that might be able to flourish. I'm not sure. But, that's the power of fiction, to where you can just kind of say, okay, you can just kind of make it so, and you can write whatever you want. So anyway, I just remember getting caught up on that for a while, being like, what year should this take place in? And then at the end of the day, I kind of let the events of the story dictate where and when the story takes place. And you'll see more about that later on. Let's go.
A calculus lesson at 10 o'clock, and dinner with Dad at 1900. A light day. Feihao. Plenty of time to chill.
I like that, Feihao. So at the time, I was learning Mandarin. So I was kind of like just trying to play with language here and just try and like, hey, what would be something that kids would say in the future, like someone who's like Chinese American would say. Like it was kind of a fun exercise. I love learning languages, and I like, I kind of geek out about this stuff. Like, as a teacher myself, I'm always hearing students say different things and different variations of the stuff that I said when I was that age, and whatever, these kind of extrapolations of culture, kind of mixing and blending together. So I ended up coming up with Feihao, which is Fei is it's pronounced Fei in Mandarin in the fourth tone. Oh, here's the first tone. Oh man. Okay. Let me not get into the technicalities of Mandarin because I haven't thought about it in a long time. But essentially, Fei is like very or exceedingly in Mandarin, and Hao is good, right? So I thought, okay, it's normal to say Fei Chang Hao, like it's very good. So I kind of like got rid of the tongue part, slashed it down, as what happens with language. A lot of it gets truncated and slipped and slanted and contracted and used in different ways. So I just came up with Feihao. That's kind of like that's kind of this character saying, I don't know if it works, but that's where my head was at when I wrote this. So I don't know. Maybe kids will be saying that in 2062. I don't know. We'll see.
Sunlight, warm and bright, made its way through the window, eating her skin. I should get going. She made her way to the body-length mirror, fastened to the back of her door, and admired herself for longer than she wanted to. A single gold-colored shirt and an old yet reliable pair of purple panties were all she wore. Her long black hair was a mess, falling in every direction except down. Gangly long arms appeared to sway in the breeze of the air conditioner. Her eyes, umber brown, shining and thin, reflected brilliance, hinting at unrealized greatness. She allowed a small...
I love that description. Two things on this part. The gold, the color thing. I remember that was an idea that I was kind of playing with, kind of having like this, not Power Rangers. That's the thing that just came to my mind, but I'm sure I thought of something different at the time, something a little bit cooler, I guess. But yeah, just having the characters be represented by these different colors. I don't think I stuck with it though. And to all you, if you're writing your own novel, that's going to happen, right? It's a long, long process, and you change as it's being written. The story changes, the characters change. So that type of continuity, to where it's not really a big detail, unless I pointed out to you, maybe you probably wouldn't have noticed. But yeah, it was something that I started with, but then I kind of scrapped because it just, later on in the context of the story, it just didn't work. Um, and then that description of her eyes, I remember writing that and being like, wow, this is very good. Just saying. I remember thinking like, okay, I've got something here, because you need those confidence boosts, right? I remember it came in one of these bursts, because the way I wrote this book was pretty much that entire summer of 2019, every day I would just log on and I would do 500 words. And most of the time that was enough to get like a good portion of a chapter. But yeah, I would just crank through 500 words and just see what I came up with. And just like any process, some days was kind of a slog, other days was like, there's some moments of brilliance there. And this was a moment of brilliance. Just saying.
Small smile onto her lips at the thought of her eyes. They projected her presence and intellect and made her more memorable, unforgettable. Some told her that her gaze was as intense as it was beautiful. She tended to agree with that observation. Her face was slim and flat, with a small nose set in the center. Her eyes scanned downward toward her, in her opinion, unremarkable breasts, when she noted a tiny red swell on her cheek. It was sensitive to the slightest prod from her finger and stung whenever the muscles of her face moved. She twitched her face several times to confirm its presence. A pimple. Great.
Shout out to my wife for doing she did a really good job. Baby, you did a good job. She would probably not admit that, but like I said, we're not voice actors. So for her to bring, she tends to be very introverted, and she even told me last night, she was like, yeah, I don't think they're ever going to see what I look like, like as far as, because it's always interesting to, especially if you listen to a lot of audio or podcasts or audiobooks, you start to get this image in your mind of, hey, what does this person look like? Because you hear their voice, you're hearing somebody narrate an entire podcast or narrate an entire audiobook. You can't help but start picturing, okay, what are they, white, black, tall, short, whatever, and maybe people were surprised by me. I don't know. Maybe I'll surprise you that this is who I am, like the primary narrator for this work. But yeah, anyway, she's more of an introvert, and so like getting on camera doing this type of live stream thing, not her cup of tea. But she did a good job. I like that line that she brought in, and she had some other tricks up her sleeves too, as far as the vocal delivery. All right, I need to go get some water, and we're about halfway through this, and I'm gonna check and see, like, do a round. So stand by. We'll return in 1 second. I'm gonna drink some water. Man, I don't know how these streamers be sitting here for like hours on end, like playing games, and man, I can't I can't do that. I don't know. I gotta get some waters and stretch, go to the bathroom, do these things. Okay. Let me do a round. Let me see what's going on here. Twitch still got one person hanging strong on Twitch. Okay. Don't know who it is, but let me go around and see. I guess I'll share my screen. All right, let's see who we got. Okay, Twitch there. LinkedIn. Oh, got 2 people on LinkedIn. Okay, cool. That's always the tricky thing with these live streams because it's hard to keep track of the various different. All right, let's see who we got. Oh, don't want that. It's hard to keep track of each source, like who's watching on each source. Very difficult. I don't know. There must be a better way to do this, but I don't know what it is. So I got to do it this way. Okay. Facebook. I love how Facebook does the audio or the auto subtitles. That's cool. And of course, YouTube. Let me reload this. Okay, cool. Load this. All right, we're good to go. All right, nice. Check the chat. I should probably pull this out so I can, there's an optimization for you. So I can have this, so you don't have to see me like checking the chat and stuff. Because you don't want to see that. All right, so let's continue. We are halfway through chapter 2, and let's continue.
She reached for nearby.
Oh, paranoia just hit in. I got to make sure the sound. Okay, it was good. Let me rewind it 10 seconds. Sorry about that.
Facial cream. She twitched her face several times to confirm its presence. A pimple. Great. She reached for nearby facial cream in her nightstand and began to methodically apply it to the red menace. As she made tiny swirls with her finger, a knock on the other side of the door startled her. Jinhua, are you up? The voice of her father resonated clearly from the opposite side of the door.
Okay. Maybe you're hearing this. If you're listening in headphones, then you can hear this. So this was obviously the second chapter. So when it comes to producing the audio drama, I was very much experimenting with different just things in in these early chapters, a lot of experimentation as far as delivery, like doing things with sound design, things like that. So I just experienced kind of a jarring, like panning thing. Like all of a sudden, Jinhua, are you awake? I was like, oh shit, is somebody over there? I kind of freaked out for a second. All right, so this is experimental stuff, right? There's no, I didn't have like a sound design course or anything. I did do an audiobook production course, but it didn't cover everything. And I some things you just got to figure out on your own. So this is one of those things to where it's like, okay, maybe don't go from like 0 to 50 panning and on the right. It kind of turns into like a horror movie. It's just me. Who's there? All right, let's go.
Yeah, I am. I'll be out in a minute. Jinhua finished applying the cream, then hurried to her closet and to dress herself. The night before, she had set aside a simple green t-shirt and shorts. The clothes swayed on plastic white hangers, undisturbed, until Jinhua hastened to rip them down and throw them on her body after changing out of her sleepwear.
I love that detail of just rip them down and throw them on. I feel like it's a very teenage thing to do, to be like, hey, I neatly set out my clothes. And that is actually kind of a callback to my mom and me when I was that age. I was just a very neat kid. I still am in a lot of ways, but yeah, I would always have my clothes for school put out for the next day, and my mom used to iron my clothes. So yeah, I would just always be neat and ready. But I feel like that's not a lot of teenagers. I feel like a lot of teenagers is just like, yeah, I gotta wear clothes to school. So I've for real seen some teenagers like at the school that I work at now. Um, they be coming in like pajama pants, Crocs, t-shirt. Like, what are you wearing? Like, maybe I'm just old now, but I'm like, maybe kids used to wear pajamas at school. They probably did, and I just didn't pay attention. But I feel like it's a very teenage thing to just rip it down and just throw it on. Whatever. Let's continue.
She hadn't realized how behind her usual schedule she was. Damn dream, stupid trash bot. When she opened her door,
This is a very cute line by my wife. I love it. I kind of poked fun at her last night for that line, and she said she laughed a little bit. Let's continue.
father stood before her, a neutral expression on his face. You have to get ready for committee. He paused, noting his daughter's uncharacteristically disheveled appearance. Did you sleep all right? There was concern in his tone. He knew that she was usually ready to go by this time in the morning. I slept great. Are you heading to the office? He was dressed in a sharp-looking steel-colored suit, accompanied with a sky-blue dress shirt. The tie was neatly pressed, accented with cerulean and white stripes. It looked new, even though she had seen him wear it off and on ever since she was little. His face shared Jinhua's features, but it was wider and rounder, making his brown eyes less pronounced to a casual observer. A full head of gray hair sat above the chiseled wrinkles carved at specific points on his face. Her father's face reminded her of a weather-beaten statue. After decades exposed to the elements, it had history and related a different story when viewed from distinct angles.
I love that line. Another like gold line of description for the father who we are just meeting now, but I like that metaphor of it's like a statue. And I'm a big history fan, and I feel like history is like that, right? It depends on where you're standing and how you look at it. That's how you interpret it, and you can interpret things in many different ways. There's some things you can't see from certain angles. Some things stand out and are very prominent from certain angles. Sometimes you can see everything, but it's just a huge metaphor for not only this character but a big part of uh, the book in general. So it's just really good. It's one of those yes. It's one of those yes, and then it's like I can't believe I wrote that type of things. Let's continue.
Every Wednesday, he made the 2-hour journey down to Sacramento to meet with the city government down there. Though he never really discussed the details of the meetings, he always came home with a mantle of sadness about his slim shoulders. I'm about to leave right now. You know how slow the bus can be. he said. Slower than the orbit of Mars. Jinhua covered her mouth to conceal a giggle. Her father chuckled
Yeah.
as well. Li Ma looked at his daughter. The little girl turned young woman, now 17 years old. In a flash of nostalgia, he recalled the first time that he took her to the Powerhouse Science Center in Sacramento. She was only a girl then, but she already had a sparkle in her eyes whenever she viewed something she liked. The sparkle appeared as soon as they entered the planetarium. The infinite collection of projected stars seemed to stretch beyond the walls of the physical space, swallowing him and his inquisitive daughter by his side whole. Though the room was packed with a sprinkling of other parents and a class of elementary school children with chaperones, it felt like they were the only two in the room. At that moment, it was Li and Jinhua's planetarium. Li had watched her eyes glowing with wonder, captivated by the endlessness and untold frontiers of space. Swirls of overwhelming emotion, threatening to break the surface of his stoic veneer, manifested as a hint of satisfaction and silent joy on his face. Jinhua was oblivious to his gaze. Her entire being was focused on the astronomical projection. To her child mind, the blanket of stars beamed back at her, calling her to wonder, imagine, and explore. My future is up there, she had thought. Ever since that day, Li had tapped all of his connections within and even outside of the organization to find her the finest resources and mentors to fuel her interest in space, science, and mathematics. First, he started her out on books for children, but she quickly devoured them and subsequently surpassed all of her peers in her honors basic space science committee. He found his old Arduino robot kit, thinking that it would serve as a suitable challenge for a 9-year-old. But by her 10th birthday, she had designed 3 of her own projects with no assistance from him or any of her committee scholars. It was unheard of within the organization for someone so young to study directly under a scholar, but with a few backdoor connections, he had made it happen for her. She was truly gifted. Dad? Are you okay? Jinhua nudged Li back from his thoughts. Fine, fine. He smiled warmly. Don't forget, dinner at 7 tonight. I'll be there. Jinhua looked back at her device in the swivel, feeling slightly embarrassed. You know, we don't have to go out. We can just eat something here. No, we should. It's not every day they let teenagers into the junior space cadets. It's a big deal. She didn't protest. Despite all.
It's funny when I think of whenever I hear space cadets, um, I think of my time at the Air Force Academy. I'm a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, and I don't know. Whenever I think of that, I feel like I heard it in the context of like somebody's spacing out or not paying attention to something. And I think it's like, oh, it's a total space cadet, something like that. But now I'm sure, like with the addition of the Space Force, the U.S. Space Force now, I imagine there will eventually. I don't know if there'll be a Space Force Academy. Maybe in the future. I mean, who knows? Um, Probably in the future, but then everybody will be called Space Cadet. No, that's funny. Let's continue.
All of her academic success throughout her life, it still felt awkward when others talked about it directly, even if it was her dad. Don't be late. He leaned forward and gently kissed her forehead, then walked down the long corridor toward the staircase to go downstairs. His small, yet powerful footsteps left faint impressions on the thick carpet as he walked away. There was a time, many years ago, when she would walk behind him to try and fill those footprints with her own tiny feet. Jinhua felt the urge to follow him now, but stopped herself when she remembered that her feet were slightly larger than his now. Instead, she stood and watched the impressions for a few seconds until they were completely swallowed by the carpet material. Have a good day, Dad. I love you.
Let's let the song play out for a little bit so you can hear. Okay, so that's the end of the chapter. I I just wanted to play that song. So you heard the instrument in there. It's a very low quality Chinese instrument, guzheng, and it was all I had at the time. I didn't have any fancy packs or anything, and now like that I've done more composing since then. Obviously, this was my first song, as I said. Um, I wish I hadn't like I didn't go crazy with the packs because I don't know, maybe if you're a music person, you understand this, or it doesn't matter what you are. I feel like the more tools, because we have so many tools at our disposal now, like whether you're an artist, whether you do, I don't know, whatever you make, there's so many tools that you can pick up. So that they kind of become a limiter, right? Because you have to, they distract from what you're doing because you have to sift through the tools first to find the optimal instrument or paintbrush or framework or whatever to create what you want to create. So if I could go back, I would probably like buy less packs. I didn't buy a lot of packs, but I bought a few and I spent many hours like sifting through different sounds and okay, this is one sounds good or whatever. I don't think I would do that now. Now I'm more about okay, get good with the fundamentals with what you have, even if it's the base kit, and make that sound good and then get packs as you go. So that's kind of where I'm at now creatively. So I hope you enjoyed this. I don't know how this comes off. Like, I don't know if this is engaging, like my one or two people that are watching. Thank you for joining me in this. I have fun making this, and I feel like if it was a story that I liked and I knew somebody that was regularly doing this, like I would actually join because it is interesting to hear. You don't get this a lot with, you get it more with like movies and stuff and maybe music. Certain artists will do like a kind of behind the music type of thing and talk about it. But I feel like it's very rare with books to where you have the actual author going through and then talking about, hey, what went into creating this? What was the process like? Different just inspirations or whatever, what do they think was good, bad? I think it's kind of interesting. I think it's a new thing. I've never seen it done before. Maybe it's just my thing. I don't know. But thank you for joining me. I'm going to put the, I don't even know how to work oh, what happened to my, oh man, I got to pull it up again. My restream went down. Oh, I pulled it out. That's why. Okay. See, I'm totally confusing myself. Okay, I've got it now. I'll do one last round before I end to see if anybody has any questions or comments about this. I'm just going to go through on each one. Okay, Twitch is here. LinkedIn. What's good? Still got 2 people on LinkedIn. That's cool. Thank you for joining. 0 viewers on Twitter. It's to be expected. Still growing there. And we've got Facebook and YouTube. Okay. All right. So that's going to do it for this one. I am going to do this more regularly. So here's the plan. The plan is, the original plan for the book experience was to go through and do all of these different, activities and creative activities and stuff. And that's all well and good, but I really want to focus on finishing the audio drama, this audio drama. That's why I've been putting so much more time into getting out episodes. Actually, just last night, I started working on chapter 24, like taking the raw audio and going through my process. So hopefully the plan is to have chapter 24 out by the end of the week, and kind of do things as I go and share them as I go. So if you are interested in, if this has piqued your interest at all, this kind of format, maybe you think it's kind of cool, maybe you think it's fun, maybe you just like me and you're like, oh, it's kind of interesting the way he does it, then consider following me on Twitter. You can follow me. Actually, I can just share my screen and show you since I have them all up. You can follow me on LinkedIn. This is my LinkedIn. Keith Hayden, that's me. On Twitter at KH_author. And on YouTube, Facebook, I don't really, don't follow me on Facebook. That's not really, that's not the place where I do things. But YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn are the main ones. And Twitch is okay as well. So I'm going to be doing this more as I continue. Yeah, we'll just continue with chapter 3. There's a lot of chapters in this book, so this could be going for a while, but hey, that's fine. And if you are interested in, this is perhaps the first one of these that you've caught and you're like, hey, where's the rest of the story? Like, I missed chapter 1 and I want to see that one. Well, you can go on my YouTube. The first live stream is on there. Some of the times I will chop some of these up and put them on various socials, but like not a lot, because it's a lot more work to go and chop it up than it is to like, and I want to be working on new episodes, new chapters. So you can rewatch this on my YouTube channel at KH_ or Keith Hayden -author, excuse me, on YouTube. You can find me there. And also there's my website. This is my website, keithhayden.net. And let me show you something cool I've been doing with my website is I've actually been doing like latest of what I've created. So these I'm trying to do like the last 3 things that I've created. And this is an extra step that I go through, but it's good because I realize a lot of people come to my website and this front page and they'll see like, this is where they get introduced to me and my creative work. So I decided to actually put that on here. So you can see the audio drama, it's on here. I was working on the translation. That's paused at this point, but I actually did link the Google Doc to where you can, if you can read Japanese, which I imagine most of you can't, but that's okay. Here it is. It's just kind of like a proof to say, hey, I am doing this and it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to going back and translating this entire book, which is a monster task in itself, but I really enjoy it. And then you can see I kind of revived my first book, Tower of Babbling. If you're interested in language learning, yeah, you can see that here. So this is kind of an upgrade to my website. So if you're interested in my work, you can find more of it there. Trying to think if there's anything else. Nope, I don't have anything else. If you are interested in becoming a passenger, I'll put the plug out there one more time for Cereus and Limnic FutureFlight. You can find the information through my website. It's down here. There's a few questions that you'll have to answer. You'll be asked before you join, and then I'll contact you to officially bring you in. And let me make sure there's nothing else. No, nothing in the chat. All right. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your attention. Appreciate you joining me on this Sunday evening for most of you back home. And if you're over here in, or if you're not back in the States and you're somewhere else to where it's Monday morning, like it is over here in Japan with me, then thank you for joining me this morning. Hope to see you on future live streams and just around the internet. See you next time.